Gabriel's Gospel Grace, changing lives and kingdom building one stone at a time.
Well, hello and good evening to you, and welcome to another Tuesday. So today's going to be slightly different. What I've decided for this round with our guests is to let them pick a topic of their choice, something relevant that they feel might be worth sharing with you. So let's bring in our special guest for today. It's the Robertsons.
Hey.
Hello to you. How are you?
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
So just for the viewers' information, we've had a few technical problems already today. And I think Johnny and I both feel the same on one matter, which is if we could turn the internet off, it would be nice to do on occasions. Unfortunately, though, we'd have to go back to the traditions of sending crows and pigeons for information transfer. But I don't think there's anything bad with that. It just takes a bit longer than a tweet. So I'm assuming you're both well and excited as we are drawing closer to Christmas time.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Humbug.
I'm humbug.
Oh,
I'm not an advocate of starting in September thinking about December the 25th. It's not my forte nor my cup of tea. The actual celebration of Christmas itself, when we keep to the celebration of Christ and the gathering together, yeah, that's absolutely fine. The advent of Jesus and so on, but all the commercial aspect of it.
well, last year when I was finishing my Christmas shopping, I actually come out to Dumfries to get obviously the last few bits and pieces. And as I went into, I think it was probably B&M, I remember thinking to myself, well, it's nearly Christmas. Will they have their Easter stocking? And I went round the corner and there was one shelf with Easter eggs and Cadbury's cream eggs. And I thought, wow, it's not actually even Christmas yet. But we're there. So I think we went from... Do you remember when we used to have normal shopping hours and it eventually became 24 hours shopping, then 24 hours, 7 days a week? Well, now I think we're going to get all festivals available. The whole 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
We're heading in that direction.
Yeah. What can I say? There's no point in railing against it because, you know, we're like salmon in the river going upstream.
This is true. So what is our topic for today? What have you two actually decided to talk about?
Well, seeing as how it's Tuesday, which is Tuesday, we thought we'd talk about marriage again. And the basic constituents thereof, you know, but there was four things oblique 5 that came to mind when we were talking about it: love, laughter, patience, and perseverance, and other stuff. And so, you know, love, laughter, patience, and perseverance just seem to me to be four things that are part of marriage. Part of every relationship probably, but part of marriage in respect of, you know, we have love and laughter, but we also have to have patience, and we definitely have to have perseverance. But, you know, I was thinking, just as we were going through our technical trials before we started, how in Luke 14, it says, you know, when you're building a tower, you think carefully and you make sure you've got enough, I'm paraphrasing, you make sure you've got enough money to finish the thing before you start. And it's the same for marriage, isn't it? When you come towards, you know, you see the wonderful, beautiful girl of your choice and you're drawn to her for whatever reasons, we'll not go into that. When you go for marriage, it's not like dating. It's not like going out with somebody. It's not like having just a normal type of friendly relationship. When you go for marriage, it's a serious commitment. You've got to really think about it, and you've got to be in it for the long game.
The long game.
Sentence, so they say. No, but and so I suppose that's the perseverance part before we even start. You've got to be prepared to persevere through the good times and through the bad times. You know, love, laughter are the good times, aren't they? The honeymoon period. the good things you go through, and the cycles of honeymoon periods you might have in your life.
Yeah.
But then, you've got to have the patience and perseverance while things get rough, so that you can go through the rough patch and get back to the good stuff that is there.
Well, it's interesting that perseverance is always seen as a sort of negative word, because it involves work. I think it's fascinating, isn't it, that anything that involves effort somehow gets degraded to being some sort of negative meaning word, which I think is more of a reflection of the generations in the world today than seeing it for what it is, and seeing perseverance as a challenge. But anything involving perseverance, I'd like to kind of flip to the word investment. Even if you were to take money and stick it in an investment project, you can't cash it in next week. There has to be perseverance. You have to wait to see it transform. And I think that's the thing. Anything with even if it's a race, there is a goal at the end of it. But if you don't finish the race, well, you failed anyway. And even if you finish last, at least you finished. There wasn't, there was an objective that was met. But it's still an investment. You have to invest into getting to that finish line. Even at the point, as a kid, I always had stitch. I was always tall. There was always an assumption in PE that, he'll run the fastest. And I could, and then I'll get stitch. But I'd walk the rest of the way. I wouldn't quit. And I think in time, that also becomes part of your psyche then, because you realise that even when it's tough and even if you've got pain, do you really want to be an actual quitter? Do you want to kind of drop out, be out the race, just to say, well, something came against me and I just quit?
Yeah, it's like withdrawing your capital from an account that won't give interest if it's not in for 365, and so you lose. You lose
straight away.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's interesting because obviously with marriage, I think sometimes it is a little bit flippant. We're in a world now where I even noticed in adverts the phrase having a side hustle, meaning having a side business. It's this kind of, whatever you're doing in life work-wise, it's always good to have a side hustle. It's like a quick get rich quick scheme or something that can turn things around. And I think in some ways, marriage has become a little bit like that as well. It's a kind of sort of an add-on to let's be clear, an add-on to an individual's life. And if two individuals think this add-on called marriage will benefit them, then they can agree to add it on to their perception of their reality, which is not what marriage is about.
No.
So you see people rushing into marriage and blowing, that's another interesting twist, isn't it? They blow an absolute fortune on one day. It's almost like, again, going back to running a race, except we all go to Sports Direct and blow a few £100 on the latest trainers and shirts and that. And we really look the part, but we ain't done any training for it. We've got no stamina. We're not been eating the right foods in preparation. There's been no effort. And we think we can simply enter it and win it.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's the point of marriage, isn't it?
What's the modern kind of thing? You think you're going to ace it before you start.
Yeah.
That.
And not, like an investment, you don't simply walk into it blindly. You need to do your due diligence. You have to look at what it means. You look at what the market is. You look at where it's going in the future. You look at what that return will be. And of course, it's interesting because I don't think many people do look at what that return is. When you look at investment, like you said, even if it's only 3 or 4% interest, it's more than what you got before. But is it worth it? And I think too many people, like you say, they might be looking at marriage as the honeymoon period without looking at the real interest in that. So that's the honeymoon period. Really, it's a bit like, I remember when I became a student, so turning the clock back a little while, but prior to me being a student, to get a credit card, I think you almost had to have it like papers signed by a doctor or a teacher or someone of standing to say that you were a suitable prospective candidate to have possession of a credit card. Yeah. Then when I became a student, within that year, it was like, here's your student loan. Actually, we're giving you a brand new free mobile phone. And for viewers watching this that are under 35, these were not smartphones. This was just a mobile phone. And of course, that meant you were now being tied in on a contract. And at the same time, they were offering you a low-limit credit card. And it all looks amazing. But you know what? It's because they saw that marriage scenario. They were actually seeing that this student will go on and be a professional. And whether they're a doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, hopefully, because we're making this nice gesture at the start of this relationship, they'll stick with us. But when you look at it, what was I really going to get from the bank? Who was going to get the most out of this? And actually, long term, it wasn't me, was it? It was me with the student loan paying interest. It was me with a credit card that one way or another, the money's going back to them. And having a phone contract that I never actually needed, but it was a nice thing. You think, oh, that's nice and smart, walking around as a student with my mobile phone. How impressive young professional I would look. But actually, they just suckered me all in to a deal that I wasn't actually looking for.
And marriage is completely different because you're making investments upon which you actually expect no return.
Amen. Comes back to what we talked about last time, covenant.
Yeah, it's exactly that. We're pouring into each other. Jesus poured into us. He wasn't actually expecting a return per se, but he was pouring into us in the hope that we would turn to him. So we pour into each other in the hope that we'll grow closer together. But we don't expect, but we don't. It's not because we're like making that investment and we're just expecting this person to give us everything that we're expecting. We're pouring into each other to so that the relationship gets better, but we don't expect them to do what we want them to do. Although it's nice when that happens.
Not often.
Well, I think that's, again, it's a different kind of investment, isn't it? We now go from the sort of the mammon bank system of incentives, which is, like I say, I think a lot of marriages look like incentives, to the reality of buy a piece of land with potential, and 20 years from now, what will it look like? What will you have received from it? How much effort did you put into it? And what will be that harvest? And I think that's more like a marriage. A marriage really is two people looking at that future piece of land, the prospects of what it could be, and then sharing that vision and working to grow together. And of course, you learn new skills on the way. I recently spoke to Kirsty and Andy, and they're kind of thriving in what they're doing. But Kirsty pointed out a lot of the stuff they're doing now, they probably didn't know a year or 2 years ago. They've had to learn and grow in crofting.
Yeah, I think that's the part of a relationship, isn't it? As you go along, you do learn. You have to adapt. You have to learn new things, new skills. I mean, we're looking back at a number of decades now of being married, so we've had to do a lot of things that maybe we didn't want to do, just to get through life, and so on. Life is not a bowl of cherries. It's not a bowl of roses. It has things that you have to go through, and that's what where the perseverance thing, the patience and perseverance comes back in again, because we've been in financial straits and so on. Not so many health issues. We've had a couple of those in the past, but when there's financial issues where you haven't got the money and you need to do some serious things to get through without collapsing, without everything falling to pieces, you've got to just pull together and cut the corners, cut the cloth to suit the pocket, and just agree to carry on, in the good times, in the bad, in the wealthy times, and in the bean times, the lean bean times.
Right.
But of course, historically, I mean, if we turn the clock back even 100 years or so, today we walk in Aldi or Tesco and we can get strawberries at any time of year and oranges at any time of year. But even as we grew up, I mean, you could only go in the supermarket and buy what was local, and that meant there were seasons. So you'd already know that. I think that was more the mindset we'd have grown up with a couple of generations back, that we knew that with every good season, there's going to be a more challenging season. But they come in cycles, and I think that's the beauty of seasons, isn't it? It's not a constant. It's the fact that it's a constant evolution and a pattern of repetition and also adaptation. And I always think that's one of them blessings, is that everything isn't static, that life is dynamic. and we keep growing and adapting in that. So, like you say, knowing you've gone through a hard time 20 years ago means when the next one comes, you're not fearing it as much. You're not hoping for one, but as we know in the world today, it's not always about what we do. We can be as diligent and invest and save and do all those things, and then suddenly the rules around us change, the world around us changes, and we will have to adapt, and all that time is no longer in our control. It's actually now in the control of the government or whoever. But that constant, like you say, that perseverance together is what gives you that resilience, which is obviously one of my big things, is all about resilience. And that's what makes you a resilient couple. I mean, if you think about the SAS and people like that, these high elite soldiers, are they better marksmen? Are they better fighters? Are they better mountaineers? Are they fitter than everyone else? No. But they are masters at perseverance. They have practiced things in conditions they don't need to. I mean, that's the reality. If you think about it, the difference with SAS versus normal army is when they've just probably spent like 6 weeks training in a desert, they don't have the year off. They now come back and then go to a mountainous region and carry on and do it all over again. They constantly keep pushing themselves with hardships so they can have much stronger resilience and more adaptation. And in a way, the point is they learn to develop their skills to the point that they can trust that in every scenario, there is a win-win. Now, that's very similar to our faith, because we can trust in every scenario the Lord is there and he has a plan.
Yeah, and that's very much, we know that from scriptures, what the plan of the Lord is. Within marriage, I know we don't have children, so we can't really comment too much on that side of it. But the plan is that we grow together and grow in harmony and benefit from the relationship as time goes by. Even though on the odd occasion, you know. And I was expecting Lesley to do the same back again.
Oh, I think she's already plotting what to do off the air. No witnesses.
But actually, you know, your thing about the SAS is right. We need to exercise ourselves in our marriage. You know, we Lesley and I benefit from physical exercise in respect of, we do physical exercise to keep our bodies fit and healthy and flexible, because, you know, as years pass, I've found that, you know, you stiffen up, you lose mobility if you don't do exercise that keeps it and maintains it. And it's the same thing in marriage. You've got to exercise yourself and keeping the relationship okay. You know, as in, so when I do a bum thing, you know, I be a disciple in many ways, say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing at the wrong time. I've got to actually say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. That's exercising myself in that. And if I don't exercise myself in that, you know, it becomes hard to do it.
Yeah.
And if it becomes hard to do it, you know, you suddenly find you've got a hardened heart instead of a soft heart. And that's where a lot of division comes from. You know, you get a hard heart and you know, it just gets worse. The thing that you focus on becomes bigger, and you have hard heart, and division comes in that way, and that's not good. So we exercise ourselves to keep together, don't we?
Yes.
Leslie's not saying much.
Well, it's been difficult between the pair of you. Anyway.
As John just said,
Yes.
sorry, Lesley. I'm humbled enough to shut up. The floor is yours.
I've just been listening to the pair of you, and I think because I come from a generation that went through the Second World War, my basis to my life is you do not give in, you dig in. You don't just give up, you dig in. And then when you dig in, you're set. It's like my dad would say, you dig into a trench. Life is not easy. It can be a great joy. It can be a wonderful thing. And marriage is like that. When I married John, our day of our wedding was a celebration of the years ahead.
Amen.
That to me was how I saw our wedding day. That's why we had a great day, like a couple of film stars. To me, that was the celebration of what was to come. And I think today everybody's very flippant, very matter of fact about the fact of life, and you know, we use things so readily because we know we can throw them away and pick them up again. Marriage has become like that. Whereas I was brought up that what you had to look after, because there wasn't very much around at that time. In the 50s, I'm giving my age away now, there was very little, especially up the north and the northeast of Scotland. We had limited things. We didn't have supermarkets. So everything had to be cared for and looked after. And that included your marriage and your family. So that's what's missing today, is this world, especially in the Western world, it's full of temptations. It's full of quick fixes. It's full of easy way out. The better way out is to have that real vision of what you want in your marriage and what you're looking for as a couple in your marriage. Being open, friendly, forgiving, happy, not just being a misery, not just being a grumpy person, but actually making the most of who you are so that you can make the most of who your partner is. You can be there to lift them up, they can be there to lift you up. And working together like that, dug in, hunkered in, saying, we're going to get through this, which we've had to learn to do because we've hit some tough times, especially after we got married. But because we committed, it lasted. It's the commitment and the digging in, looking to the future, knowing that you're not going to give up easily at all. I'm very dogged at not giving up. I did that in my last job. Folks said, you couldn't do this, you can't finish this. I said, I will finish this project. So it's your attitude when you enter marriage. If you enter with that thought, oh, we could get divorced, you've lost the battle.
Yeah.
Enter marriage with, I am going to succeed in this, or we are going to succeed.
Yeah, and it's the we. It's definitely the we together, because you know, if you're not equally yoked together, if you're not both thinking the same thing, if you're not both looking for the same end product, then you're going to be pulling unequally, and one of you know, you'll be hurting each other as you go along, because one's got one eye on the prize, one's got one eye somewhere else, and that's not good. It's to, you know, the prize is just to grow in the grace and the knowledge of Jesus as you go along together in the marriage, and
have some fun in the way.
And have some fun. But that's the love and the laughter bit, you know, because it's love that keeps you going through it all. You know, love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't boast in itself. You know, all the good things of love. But the in 1 Corinthians 13, I think it is, where it says, love never fails. Right. So if you love your partner, you know, and love doesn't keep itself, you know, looked at itself and so on and so forth. If you love your partner, you're not going to fail. You will get through every situation. That's right. And that's when we got together, and you know, we popped the question over a chocolate pudding.
Is a typical.
That's a tip for everyone watching.
Chocolate pudding, I recommend it. But when I popped the question, and Lesley, to my great surprise and delight, said yes, you know, that was it. Effectively, that was the end of the story. Having decided to go for marriage, that was it. The ceremony came after, but we were already in the love and laughter portion at that time. That was carrying us along, and it was great. We had a wonderful, as Lesley said, a wonderful marriage ceremony and a great honeymoon and so on and so forth. It was not, by the way, you know, 30 days in the best country in the world. No. Those were the days we couldn't afford much. No. We wouldn't go into what it was at the moment. But and it was wonderful because we were together, and we were together going through the experience of it, not living like kings, but we were going through the experience, and we absolutely loved it. We loved being together, and we still do love being being together, most of the time.
Well,
Well, while you were sharing all that, then I was given the word quality, and quality being a labour of love. So when you think about it, if you buy anything or anyone gives you something of quality, the reason it's quality isn't its material value, it's the fact often it is crafted by hand, which means a person's not just got a very high level of skill, which has took perseverance and development over the years, but they'll have made it diligently with love and professional craftsmanship, because it's that quality that goes into everything. So a labour of love, keyword there, the labour, meaning doing the work, is what results in quality. So like you said, you could literally be having marmalade sandwiches on a rocky shore in the wind and the rain, and that could be the perfect honeymoon, because it's the quality of it.
I absolutely love it. There was 5 things we kind of brought forward: love, laughter, patience, and perseverance. So we've talked about them very briefly, but the 5th one is the other stuff.
The other stuff.
The other stuff. But the thing about that is that what I've got in mind for that is grace. There's love, laughter, patience, perseverance, and then there's grace, having grace with each other. And the proper definition of grace, or one of them, a very brief one, is receiving freely everything you don't deserve.
Yeah.
I mean, that's there's got to be that in a marriage. There's love, there's laughter, there's patience, there's perseverance. There's all the other things that rotate around that. But you've got to have that grace. We receive grace from God, and we've got to give grace to each other through the periods where we're maybe not so graceful. I know you say that's patience, but it's grace. It's when we treat each other, and neither of us deserves it. Whichever one it is that's going through a period of time, and we should treat each other with grace.
Absolutely.
Undeserved.
I'm going to say that is the word, though, isn't it? Undeserved. It's no expectation. Whereas perseverance is there is an expectation with time. So
but I heard a testimony of a man that's going away from our marriage, and how for quite a long time his wife was going completely away from him, didn't want anything to do with his faith, and so on and so forth. And it was a long time where he did nothing but just love his wife. He just loved his wife, and it was decades. I could name the person, but I'm not going to, not in this public sphere. And the end product was that his wife eventually came back alongside with him and said it was because of his love, his patient, persevering, and graceful, full of grace love that he showed to her, that she actually came back and got through this difficulty. It was actually a personality disorder that she had. And she came through it, and she came through it because she saw the reality of his love for her without expectation or condemnation of her. And I thought that was great. And that was a lesson for me to get my act in order so that I could be more like somebody like that, because that's what I want to show to my wife.
Well, it's interesting, the phrase grace of God, which I think it's not just God's grace upon us, but we have the grace of God within us to give to others. And I think that's the one thing at the minute the world cannot capitalise on. It can't manufacture it, it can't present it, and it certainly can't offer it. That's everything has a condition on it today. But grace is something that, well, John was on about switching off the internet. Grace does not exist in the internet, and it's not in that reality. It's a kingdom gift that we can share. In fact, a phrase came to me the other day, which is it's been a thought of reflection for me this week, which is a poor man is not poor by what he lacks. The poor man is the one who craves more. And I thought that's relevant to relationships as well. It's not that there's anything wrong with a relationship. It's a very good relationship, but My friend's got this. The way that he loves her is like that. TV presents it should be this way. So people are constantly wanting more. And that, I mean, often it's said in this, you know, if when I was speaking to my Coleman who just dropped off a delivery, he was saying how he'd spent some time in the West Indies. And he said some of the places he went, he said they had nothing. But he said they were so happy and they didn't want anything. He said they just seemed to have a better quality of life. And I thought then it's the same principle. It's the fact it's not, they don't want anything more. That's a different, they're not craving. What they've got, they are content with. And that means that they are literally coming from a place of grace for others as well. And I think that's the bit we all lack, that humility to move in grace. We are looking at perseverance and all those practical things we can do, but grace is not something practical. It really is something, in fact, I don't even think you can force yourself to give it. It comes purely from that place of love. You have to love enough to give it and have nothing back in return.
Yeah. I was just thinking, you know, you used the word investments earlier on. We, you know, could swing back and use a biblical word, sowing. Investments are sowing. And God's sowing his grace into us in abundant measure. And in actual fact, it's an infinite measure. The grace that he's given us is measureless. And so we've got an abundant supply of it to use so that we can be graceful. We can sow grace into others, into each other in the marriage, but also outside of the marriage to other couples, to other people, and so on. I think that's, you know, the principle of sowing and reaping is so valuable in life and in marriage.
You sow into your relationship. What you sow in is what you get back. If you give grace, you'll get it back. If you give love, you'll get it back. If you give anger, you'll get anger back.
Yeah.
If you do spiteful things, you'll get spiteful things back. So it's what you sow in. That's what your harvest will be. Some of it.
Amen. And the good news is, of course, you've demonstrated this, Lesley, by marrying your chocolate pudding.
Absolutely. Well, regarding the chocolate pudding, on another occasion, never say to Lesley, don't dare me. I picked up the spoon and I put it into my pudding and I flipped it right at him. He didn't think I would do it. But
no, because I said you wouldn't dare. Oh, yes, she would.
She was demonstrating her grace for the future in that moment.
Absolutely.
Which is, whatever you want to give, John, I can certainly give better. And on that note, we're going to have to conclude because it's that time again. So thank you again for your contribution and wisdom. And it's been a great topic for you to pick. So, yeah, thank you for that. 5 key points for marriage. And hopefully viewers will relate to that. Hopefully we'll see you again briefly before Christmas. Obviously, timetables allowing, because I know that obviously everyone's in a very busy time at this period. But certainly look forward to seeing you both in the new year, at the very least.
Amen. Amen.
God bless.
God bless.
So hopefully you've all gained a little something from those 5 points from the Robertsons, who have a lot of wisdom when it comes to marriage, mainly because also they have a lot of friends that are married and they've observed things over time. More importantly, though, they both move in grace, and that's evident within their relationship. The points that they raised today, perseverance, joy, happiness, grace, and the other stuff, things that we should reflect on in all our relationships in life, but even more so in a marriage. So for those of you out there who are moving towards the Christmas season, who are contemplating marriage, or perhaps even in your marriage, you fear this time of year because it brings up trouble and stirs up family anxieties. Or perhaps the key is to move in grace this Christmas time and with all the people in your life. God bless. If you were blessed by this video, why not give it a like? Also subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos.